So in this video, we're going to be talking a little bit about one of the greats of all time, Cheryl Miller, and what she was saying in her interview yesterday. So this is something that I was going to make, a video I was going to make yesterday, and I mean, I just had a bunch of stuff on yesterday and didn't really get much sleep. So I'm making this video now anyway. And the goal is to have this video and that kind of be the end of this. And it is a perfect discussion because we all saw the post. Obviously, that post that went kind of semi-viral on Twitter about somebody who clearly was covering the WNBA. They were doing some stuff in the WNBA. They had links with teams complaining basically that a lot of the spots, like a lot of the media spots, were given to new fans or people new in WNBA media rather than the people that have been there for years. And one of the best things when it came to Cheryl Miller was she just genuinely spoke the truth. Whether it be for Caitlin Clark, when they're being like about Caitlin Clark getting the hype, it's like, well, like she was putting in the same work as everybody else. People just gravitate towards her, basically, is what she said, which is a fact. And then also, when she was talking about, she was asked basically about the people kind of, her, I don't know if it's her peers, I don't know what way the question was worded, but basically, she was asked about like the WNBA media who have put false narratives about Caitlin Clark and all this stuff and like aren't taking advantage of it and seem to want to ungrow the game. And she was basically just, I think she used the word dummies and basically just said, the money's there, go get it. And that's the maddest part about this, is that all they had to do, all these people who had been there for years had to do was just talk about the sport of basketball. And I mean that. That's all they had to do. So it wasn't any of the, like, there's a difference between constant praise for Caitlin Clark and just praising everything, but it's like talking purely about the sport of basketball. That's all they had to do. That is literally all they had to do. But instead, they wanted to talk about anything but basketball to attack Caitlin Clark, because my favorite part about this is, and I'm not even talking, like, I'm not questioning Cheryl Swoopes' knowledge of the sport of basketball. I'm questioning a lot of other people's knowledge, the people that have never played the damn sport, or anyone who claims to be a sports/political reporter. They don't care one damn about basketball. So all of those people are there talking about it from a perspective of CC bad, Caitlin Clark bad. Nothing to do with basketball, nothing to do with her actual game. Just CC bad. That was it. And all you had to do was report on the sport of basketball. And by the way, you didn't even have to be a Caitlin superfan. Just talk about basketball. Like, I'm sorry, it's all you had to do. That's all these people had to do. They already had one foot in the door. Like, I don't think there are plenty of people that are not absolute Caitlin Clark superfans, but they're willing. They just talked about basketball, and they're obviously working their way up in jobs. They're doing really well, and they keep it basketball. Like when you look even just at ESPN, like Alexa Philippou, she just talks basketball. I don't know if she's a fan, because that's the thing. It's not like, the problem is that the majority of the old WNBA people were stans that talked about a sport, and somehow, because they were the only people there for jobs, got put into positions that maybe they would not have been in if the league was bigger. And then as the league gets bigger, there are more credible reporters getting into those positions. It stands posing as reporters, and like, that is a fact. That's a fact. And the worst part is that they could have still made the damn money. All they had to do was just not even just embrace the Caitlin Clark. Like, you embrace the growth of the game. You don't try to ungrow the game. Just by purely embracing the damn growth of the game. They could have made so much money. Like, anyone who just jumped on the hype train, did well. And I stand by this, like, yeah, the people that I think, realistically, the people that made probably the most money were those AI channels that lie about Caitlin Clark going to Europe. And then after that, it is probably the extremists on all ends who don't actually give a damn about the sport of basketball, but are just but are just in it for, I don't even know. Well, to be fair, they're in it for financial reasons, which is a very, considering how lucrative this is, do not begrudge anybody that's in this for financial reasons, like with how lucrative it is. And like, let's be real. If I was making the same amount of money covering the NBA and the WNBA, probably would be covering the NBA. But the WNBA, it's easier to follow because there's less players. The draft, you've got like players in all 4 years, so it's easier to follow the draft. There's less games. It's on during the summer, which is an interesting time, and I think it's easier to follow. And then it's always fun because you've got like people like Cheryl Swoopes that make it very easy, that just talk themselves into a hole every single time they open their mouth, it seems. But yeah, it is so funny, and she was completely right. Like, the funniest thing about this is that Cheryl Swoopes is one of the most known WNBA players. All Cheryl Swoopes had to do was just not literally lie about Caitlin Clark. Like, not literally lie and just not say nonsense things. Not lie about all her points and everything. Not imply that the reason why the Indiana Fever, or there was that it wasn't just because of Caitlin Clark that the Indiana Fever were doing well. It was also because they added Katie Lou Samuels, one of the worst players in a rotation last year in the WNBA. They were of equal importance to the Fever. And then immediately after the All-Star break, in your first podcast, when the Indiana Fever and the Dallas Wings, or say not the Indiana Fever and Dallas Wings, and the Indiana Fever were balling out, you then congratulated the other 4 members of the Fever starting 5 and said that they were all hooping, which was why they were doing so well, including freaking Katie Lou again. Or was it Katie Lou? No, it wasn't. Nalissa Smith. She mentioned Nalissa Smith, who I don't think anyone would argue Nalissa Smith was good last year. I'm not even sure. I'm not even sure Nalissa Smith herself would say she played well last year. And then after that, when she won Player of the Month, there was 50 seconds of silence because she refused to say the name Caitlin Clark. And then she got taken off the commentary. She got taken off commentary for a game. So she lost out on, I don't know how much revenue, but some revenue. And I'm not entirely sure if the Queens of the Court podcast, you know, the WNBA podcast that they always hype. I don't know if that podcast is still there. Like, I don't even know. I genuinely don't know. I saw a post on Reddit basically saying, it's gone. That it's gone. Like, you can see here a Reddit post. All the episodes, and this is her old podcast at the WNBA. All the literal podcast that Cheryl Swoopes is on with the WNBA. All podcasts are now subsumed into the Women's Hoop Show, and it's Jordan seemingly by herself with Swoopes as a guest. So it seems like Women's Hoop Show was downloaded. Once I heard Jordan's voice, put it together. Gonna miss Queens of the Court. The podcast opened my eyes. Teams beyond the aces and the dream. I mean, and that's the thing. Like, all Cheryl Swoopes had to do was not. She didn't even have to be a super fan. Just not be the super hater. Not become Caitlin Clark, Skip Bayless. That's all she had to freaking do. She had the podcast that the league was promoting. She had every link in the WNBA. All she had to do was just be fair. And not during her beef on Twitter for refusing to refusing to acknowledge Caitlin Clark, randomly showing up at an Angel Reese game while that whole thing is arguing with people, calling them every name under the sun on Twitter Spaces, and then going to an Angel Reese game that night, just as a fuck you to all the new fans. All, like, that genuinely. And by the way, that's not even a good thing for Angel Reese, where it's like, I don't even know if the support is there or not. And it's like, yeah, Cheryl Swoopes is there, and I hope behind the scenes it was actual support and not just Cheryl Swoopes trying to give the finger to Caitlin Clark fans. But that literally is what it seemed like. From the outside looking into what it seemed like. She had everything. She had absolutely everything going. She had every advantage possible. And all these other people have had every advantage possible. And they've screwed it. And by the way, like, you don't even, again, have to be a Caitlin Clark superfan. Just be fair. Elle Duncan said some dumb shit. But I don't think people are constantly going at Elle Duncan and she's still getting opportunities because she's not been deemed the Caitlin Clark hater. And by the way, like, getting in any of these actual, like, WNBA media slots for the positions. The problem is that the old WNBA crowd, the vast majority of the ones that aren't getting anything, not that they've been deemed Caitlin Clark haters, but like, they've been, whether it be fairly or unfairly, been all lumped in together as Caitlin Clark haters. Just like all the new fans have all been lumped together as Angel Reese haters, when it's not a fact most of the time. And that's the thing. That is just the unfortunate thing. But the maddest thing about this is all they had to do was be smart. All they had to do was just say it like it is. And again, if you're looking at YouTube, if you're looking at the likes of someone that was there before and isn't a Caitlin Clark homer, but actually just talks about the sport of basketball, you've got like a Quita of Sports, a Hunter Cruz, who are getting more and more views per video now and becoming more relevant. Yeah, it's not as lucrative as joining joining absolute stan culture and lying about players, and, you know, instead of talking about what Sophie Cunningham will bring to the Fever and making videos on Sophie Cunningham's looks, like that is definitely more lucrative. It is more lucrative short term. But I have a weird feeling that WNBA is going to keep growing, which is why I have a really good feeling that I'll be here for the long run. And no matter what happens, I think you're going to be seeing those old WNBA media shaking their fists and claiming every sort of like discrimination against them, and, you know, why are teams doing this, what reason. And the reality is that all you had to do was be fair. Anyone in the old WNBA media that was just fair, is having, like, are being pushed into positions that they could only dream of. The problem is that the vast majority of you guys of them, I don't know, I say you guys, I assume they're not watching this video, of them could not be fair. And it does not matter unless you are going onto ESPN and being the Kendrick Perkins, or, in fairness to Cheryl Swoopes, she's probably making decent money going on to Gilbert Arenas thing. And by the way, that's the perfect place for Cheryl Swoopes. You don't have to be fair on the Gil's Arena. That's where you can say your wildest stuff. But if you're not Cheryl Swoopes, and you're not one of the most famous female basketball players of all time, you're just a random stan, you're not gonna see it. Like, that's not gonna work to your advantage. And again, there's a time and place to just say mad stuff. And unfortunately, it seems like a lot of the old WNBA media are being pushed aside. And the good thing is that there are basketball fans. You're seeing the Robin Lundbergs of the world, who are clearly just basketball fans. Clearly basketball fans and embracing the WNBA. You're seeing a lot of basketball journalists start to watch the WNBA even more. And that's great. And I do think long term, when it comes to the YouTube, it's not going to be the extremists on either side, even though short term is probably the most lucrative thing right now. So don't begrudge that. I think long term, I'm here for the long term. I'm enjoying this. And for myself anyway, I absolutely love the sport of basketball, and I don't think there's a better job right now than talking about basketball, to be honest. And love the sport, whether that be Irish Superleague, whether that be watching EuroLeague, whether watching Euro Cup women, whether it be watching Irish underage teams playing in European championships, great. Whether that be reporting on Gandhi Mamu Mamel, from Limerick Celtics, who's going to UConn in like 2 years as like this 6'6" freak athlete from Ireland. I'll be here for all of that. And while that's going on, and hopefully the sport continues to grow, the people that are trying to ungrow the game so that they can get back on top, all they had to do was just be fair, and they would have had success that they could not even imagine. But anyway, I'll see you guys.